conference, you're super stoked, really pumped. The question is, how do you actually keep that going and moving forward so that you can accomplish something? All too often in our field, people are stoked, there's really cool stuff at a conference, and then it just kind of dies out. It can be frustrating because you see the same things over and over and over again. That said, today, this is our topic on the Daily BA, part 5 of our series on how to conference. Let's just jump into it. So the idea here is that we're going to talk a little bit about how to avoid the drama, finish strong, go through all of that conference, and then how do you follow up and continue everything. So first, avoiding the drama. So these events, if you're trying to squeeze everything that you can out of them, there is a ton of activities. Typically they're going from 7 in the morning all the way until midnight if you're capitalizing all the socialization opportunities and such. So the question is, how do you take care of yourself? How do you sleep and those sort of things? I have been a big fan of wherever you can get it, hack that time, sleep, rest, whatever. So I program into my days just little bits of time, maybe it's 15 minutes, maybe it's an hour, where I can disconnect, do things I'm usually doing. Maybe that's YouTube, maybe that's listening to music, right? Scrolling through social media, whatever it is that just kind of makes your day better. Power naps, that's one as well. So it's important. Plan ahead where you're going to have your breaks. Now, there's this culture and behavior analysis that comes from larger, just general culture in American society, I think, of talking and drama. We talked about in the 4th video, you have to worry about your brand and what it is that you're always doing out there, but know that there's always this EO for people that really go for folks, and plan ignoring has been extremely useful in my own life. When it comes to all the things that get thrown at you, it's important to have some sort of system for notes, record keeping, and such. I introduced you a conversation that I had with Dr. Megan Miller while we were at the conference. So at the end of the conference, what are your tips and tricks on how you finish up, follow strong, continue with your commitments, see if it's something maybe you learned something new, are you really going to learn it? How do you handle all that?
So I usually try to take really good notes during the sessions, and I'll note down any articles that were mentioned, and I try to find them right in that moment. And I have a folder of I want to read these articles, or if I have an opportunity, I'll try to talk to the presenter or other people that were in the talk to find out where I can get more information on something that I was interested in. I usually get the email address either from a business card or the program book of the presenter and send them whatever questions I have. Sometimes I try to do that right during the conference. What I've found is I'm more likely to get a response if I get my questions sent right before the end of the conference, because usually people are flying and traveling back and checking their emails. So if you can get it in there early enough, or if I miss that window, I usually wait a couple weeks, because if you do it right after the conference, they're catching up on so much stuff, you're not likely to get a response. So
everybody designs this a little bit differently. For me, I have basically resorted to purely technology. So everything is here on my lovely phone. A few things that I do, I will make sure that I always have my reminders set up for things that need to be happening and accomplished the next day. So the reminders app is great. Cool. I would say big things that I've done is if you learn something new, don't get so into that thing that's your only thing, right? You need to take whatever it is that you learned and take it back in relation to everything else that you have learned. So if you learned something from the peak training that you did before this, right? I would say, cool, take that, go back, look at everything else that you learned with assessments and program books for people with autism and learning disabilities, intellectual disabilities, and look at that whole thing. It's part of being a scientist practitioner. You're looking at it in relation to everything, right?
Yep.
So if you have a new goal, if something you want to read, make sure that you're not dropping everything else.
Yep.
That's the process of science.
It is, and one big thing that fits into there, which is why I was philosophical doubt. Yep. Don't just sit through a presentation and go, oh, this is such great new information, I must synthesize it right away. If it's something you've never learned about before, especially if you're learning about something and you're being told something else is something negative in some way, or it's being framed as like potentially having certain pitfalls, don't just blindly believe that person, even if they're an expert in the field. Go, find that source.
That's dogma. That is not part of our science.
Go find the actual source. Oh, they said there's pitfalls about peak, or they said there's pitfalls about, I don't think anybody would ever say this at this point in our field, but behavioral skills training, or they said there's pitfalls of ISCA, or whatever. If you haven't actually read the initial source literature on those things, or talked to people who do the trainings and teach on those things, just blindly being like, oh, well, so-and-so said, this thing isn't good.
Yeah.
That's not science.
Yeah. The idea is that you're appealing to an authority, and it's just when it comes to logic, it's just an improper way to be justifying the reasons you're doing things.
Yeah.
You can appeal to that authority, like work an empirical part of it. You can focus on the empirical components.
Yeah.
But we forget to do that.
Yeah.
Especially in the age of people kind of branding their stuff all over the place.
Yeah, and usually like when I'm taking my notes in the conference, what I do is I keep a Google Drive folder.
Okay.
And for each conference I have like the folder, and then I just start new files. Doesn't work very well if there's no Wi-Fi, but otherwise it's great. And then I can share those with people and whatnot.
Yep.
But in there, as I'm typing, I'll use the comment function, and I'm constantly like, even if someone's saying something that I'm super like connecting to, I'm still constantly like, but what about this? Or we can make it better this way. Or did they actually look at this thing? Or, and that kind of stuff. So I'm putting in those types of questions throughout.
Yeah. I use notes for the entire conference. I'll take down all my ideas. I'll header everything a little bit different. I'll header each different talk or event that I'm at, take my notes, summarize those sort of things, and then I'll send it to myself later in an email. The reason being, when it's in an email, my system is then to take that and put it into my project management apps, and the things that I'm looking to achieve in the long term, I kind of fit those in. Now, that brings up the idea of goals and goal setting, right? Goals in our field are an important, crucial part of accomplishing anything when we're talking about learning, follow through, and such. So again, everyone's going to design them in different ways, but you got to make sure that they're actionable, measurable, and that you can actually say, here's my baseline, here's where I want to be, or here's my baseline, here's where I want to be. Everything's backwards on cameras. The important thing is, how do you take some data to make sure that you're figuring out how much progress you're making towards these things? So here's a good example. Ogden Lindsley. He may or may not be our poster this month. He was a fan of taking account of the number of research ideas that he had during a conference experience. You could quickly tier that out to your different ideas, right? And when you want to accomplish them throughout the year, looking at what resources are needed or such, and then follow up the next year and see what you actually carried through with. Now, if research isn't your thing, you want to pick up a practitioner tool, resource, something like that, you want to connect with somebody, all of this fits within a goal-setting framework. Some keys here to reiterate: data so that you can monitor, mentors so you have somebody there to make sure that you have a little bit of oversight and you can learn from their experience and their history, and a support network. The support networks, I'm a fan of them being online. You can also have people that you call. The point here is you have an infrastructure set up to where not only did you learn something, you have some goals, but you're repeatedly interacting with a community that can help you evaluate your progress, what's next. We've always done this online in an online group, looking to restructure it, maybe launch it for the new year. But there's so many people in this field that you can reach out and start to figure those sort of things out. I am interested in figuring out how to bring this component into the community that is the Daily BA. We're figuring out how we can maybe do that in the closed group for Patreon members that are supporting at $5 a month and higher. Figuring it out. If you have ideas, let me know down below.
And what's interesting is, whether or not you have a business card. I would still, if you're not quite in the business card phase yet, it's still a good idea to acquire business cards. And business cards can be a real great way to just get that additional information that you can, because the key part is, and this is where I think you get a lot of bang from your network, is how you contact them after, kind of keeping the conversation going. Kind of just reaching out, even if it's just a cool thing, like, thank you so much for meeting with me. I learned a ton from a little bit of information. I know you were super busy and it meant a lot to me. Boom, and that you send that email off, and no one's gonna not be impressed with that. So I mean, it's just a great way, just a little ways just keep the conversation going. Connecting with people through LinkedIn, I think is I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn when it comes to the social space, and having opportunity to see what people are talking about, and helping to get them to spread their message, you know, is another kind of key way. So when you see something cool that somebody said, tweeting it out, you know, using the social is a super, it helps the field in a big way.
Now you want to talk about crazy systems. Every time I get a business card, you know, Tim was talking about business cards. I don't carry them. I just do everything through my phone and electronic. But anytime I get one, I put them in my pocket. They go right here on the right side. The reason being is when I get home or at the end of the day, whenever it is that I've scheduled my time to kind of follow up and plan what I'm going to do after that conference session, is I pull them out and then I go through each one. And if I need to, I've written down notes on the back of what it is that I had to do or accomplish. I don't always get to it quickly, but I always follow through, or at least save that item for when it is time to follow up. So we talked a bit about following up. We talked a bit about this planned ignoring and the drama. The last thing is finishing strong. I always suggest that depending on how hard you're going and what your schedule is and availability, plan in a little bit of time to relax, whether that's beginning, the end. I try to tag mine onto the end. I've actually gotten to the point now, especially when I tag a few different events back to back, that I'll take a day to just rest, relax, catch up on some emails and things, but I'm not talking, I'm not going into meetings, I don't have to produce anything. I'm gonna be relaxing for 10 hours of that day, just because these things are just so much when you're diving into it. The number one problem that I have with these all the time is that I go too hard, I get sick, and then I have to spend time recovering. I did that actually after this event at FABA. I was sick not once, but twice, just destroyed with the flu. All right, that is your episode, your series on how to conference. It was not extensive, exhaustive per se. There's other links, comments below, hopefully sharing their perspectives. Please add yours. And I guess, FABA, thanks for letting me run around with the camera informally. Appreciate it. Looking forward to next year. And I don't know, I'm thinking about going. Are you? Let me know down below. That's your Daily BA.
Yeah. You're like a celebrity, by the way. I was like, there was this new analyst that came in and she's like, you know, I keep hearing about this Shane Spiker on PBS. Who's Shane Spiker? And I'm like, it depends how you want to describe him. He's a selfie stick. He is.
All right, if you're into this, this is where you click to subscribe. This is my most recent video over here, and then right over here, that is what YouTube suggests is what you're gonna be most interested in based on all the tags and that sort of stuff. So check those out. Also, there's some sweet posters, stickers, merch like that. We do a pretty good kickback to the